So I wake up on a Sunday. It's Kyriaki, the day of the Lord. And yet there the fuck I was, not even out of bed yet, clicking into the first IG story to pop up and seeing new author drama. After Kate Corain, I was sure we'd hit the bottom. Alas, the Lord was not with us that day. Thus, follow my walk through hell. Me and my dumbass time zone mean that although all dates hit me first, I sleep through everything because everything always happens either US or UK time. So there's a reason why I didn't eat until like 5 p.m. I awoke to a full course meal of blue light burning into my retina in the form of many a secondhand tweet. I don't have Twitter anymore, fuck that app, peace and love. But also, we have none other than a receipt doc. Non-flashbacks, as they say in this country. That's a problematic phrase. Concerning. So, let me actually relay our dramatis personae, if you will. The defendant will now state their full name for the record. And that name is Freydís Moon. Freydís? It's an Icelandic name. There's an accent which I assume is actually worth something. The Icelanders are yet to disappoint me, but there is always time. I'll call them Frey, and actually, I kept calling them Freydís for a time. For some reason, my brain skipped the R because I guess it just viewed it as unnecessary peace and love. I've been watching a lot of Honestly Sophie, so I can't stop saying peace and love now. I will try to refrain. This doc was my saving grace for real though, because I've had Frey blocked for ages, as well as like 80% plus of the Anglophonic author community for reasons I'll gloss over later, but also I'm just not interested in that kind of fiction. Basically, what I'm saying is that I didn't know anything about anything. It's still not even 10 a.m. on the Kyriaki yet anyway. I've linked the thing, but the basic gist is that the author Freydís Moon, who also goes by the pen name Saint Harlow, is being accused of alleged brownface through allegedly masquerading as a Latina person whilst allegedly being white. Furthermore, there are supposedly multiple previous author identities such as Taylor Barton and Taylor Brooke, white women, as well as Jupiter Wise, another supposed queer Latina author, which Frey is also accused of previously carrying. There's an older article being cited which links Taylor Barton / Brooke to Jupiter Wise, as these people were allegedly notorious for bullying, harassment, and weaponization of their hugely white fan base, especially against other actual BIPOC authors, including Bethany Baptiste. That very Bethany Baptiste, yes. I told y'all Khanet Kani is never actually done. So, from what I can tell, it seems to allegedly be the white author Taylor Barton / Brooke who committed brownface through the Latina alias of Jupiter Wise, was then called out, and has now donned the identity of a Latina also, Freydís Moon, aka Saint Harlow. From this, we supposedly extrapolate that Taylor B. Barton is the alleged first cause. I'm sticking with Frey for now, and for continuity's sake. As jurors, we are not to be swayed by sympathy, which was very doable for me. You know, Dammasters online keep talking about how smut in fiction will lead to violence somehow, and I'm just living proof that's ridiculous because, to paraphrase a modern philosopher, I am extremely violent, and I have never consumed pornography. True story, Bismillahi. Bismillahi! What was wrong with me when I wrote this part of the script?
Don't talk to me until I've had my god.
I'm stopping, I promise. Now, I worked this all out throughout the day. However, at this point it's around 10 a.m. and I shared to my IG story a screening of a tweet by the author Mars Adler, who I also have blocked. Absolutely no personal reason, please. I just don't engage with the author community after my awful experiences. I'll get to that. Here, I call your attention to make it blatantly clear, I am no longer supporting Freydís Moon or Saint Harlow, one of their pen names. And my story reads, I've always felt an extremely eerie energy from this person and have them blocked for a reason. Not least of which being them endorsing through author blurbs people who are friends with and support a violently racist author who was racist to me, as well as racist in their books through anti-Semitic, anti-Asian, and anti-Slav caricatures. I know this doesn't speak on Freydís, but you are also the company you keep. I also distinctly recall them making a post about screenshotting widely and staying out of drama, assumedly spurred on by the Kate Corain saga, a post I commented on, by the way. I just think that's funny. Sustained, I do think that's funny. And that's also where I was still calling them Freydís. I'm not a native Latin alphabet reader, okay? By the way, I had no reason to feel anything eerie about them. I didn't see any red flags, I just had my Cassandra moment as usual. Whatever. Overruled. Here, I actually got out of bed, so help me God, had coffee because I already had my nutritious blue light breakfast, and went about my regular online activity, seeing as my people, siblings, and neighbors are being violently ethnically cleansed on Maine, whilst Westerners by birth are being racist to me and at me peace and love though. I started seeing quite distressed discourse from other authors who are also faceless and use a pen name like Frey, about feeling like they'll be expected to out themselves. Many of these authors are queer and in potentially dangerous living situations, and that whole thing made me quite galvanized. So at about 10:30 a.m. is when I make another Instagram story reading. Also, in terms of this Freydís moon garbage and the discourse coming up around faceless authors and pen names. There's a reason I hide my face behind a mask and use a pseudonym. I don't know how many times I have to repeat that I was born and raised in a police state. It's not out of the question that I'll have to go back to my birth country again. And if I slip up, it's also not out of the realm of possibility that I could be detained, which would run me the risk of a 20+ year sentence for both quote-unquote LGBT propaganda and quote-unquote discrediting the armed forces of the RF. I write anti-authoritarian anarchist fiction, which is influenced heavily by my background and upbringing, and which would absolutely incriminate me. You don't get to demand I, a semi-closeted mixed ethnicity Eastern immigrant, expose myself for your comfort. Still misspelling Freydís, but this story I then, at around 11 a.m., turned into a grid post titled On Why I Use an Author Pseudonym and Don't Owe You Anything. The first 3 slides are my IG story screenies and the rest to read. If you want proof of my accent, you can quite literally just go to my YouTube channel and listen to like 3 words. If you're here for that purpose, you're so welcome. I guess. You're a weirdo. Continued, I did not ever make much contact with FM aside from commenting on, in retrospect, a really ironic IG post of theirs. This is mostly just rehashing, but I know they have endorsed through autoblubs, friends and locals, blah, blah, blah. You already saw that. I know this doesn't speak on FM, whatever. I don't know if I'll keep this post up, as this conversation always spurs a lot of deep anxiety for me, police state, legacy, what can I say? But it's here for now. I have 80% of the author community blocked for a reason. As of right now, this post is still up. I'll have attached the relief organization linked as well, as this post had a relief organization attached to it, a fundraiser attached to it. The meat of the caption I end up sharing in a review on Goodreads at around 3:30 p.m. as, even if the whole thing with this author allegedly being white masquerading as Latina turns out to be a hoax, I will never support them for the mere fact that they endorse friends of someone who was racist to me and at me to other groups, whilst my people, siblings, and neighbors are being violently ethnically cleansed from all sides. You're the company you keep. Note, I do not consent to my quote-unquote review being screenshotted for any purpose. There's no guarantee I'll keep this up if my safety is compromised. I have 80+% of the Anglophonic author community blocked and do not interact for a reason. Please leave me alone, peace and love. I don't go on Goodreads unless it's for my nonfiction and theory, mostly since that's my reading genre. I don't read my own reviews, but this felt necessary in the moment, and I do stand by my note. At the time of me making this video, it is possible that I may have deleted this. As a mixed Swana person who has distanced myself from the Anglophonic writing space due to racism, as I mentioned, having had primarily white audiences be weaponized against me, whilst being someone who keeps very few white people close for safety reasons, being a queer person who has experienced racially motivated queerphobia from white queer authors, on top of colonial violence from Turco-nationalists as an indigenous Anatolian, this garbage with Frey felt pretty familiar. It's very much an author space gangrene, I fear. And, you know, I think as an avoidant, dismissive attachment style bitch, I really do live up to us as jurors being called to not be swayed by sympathy. But I still feel for the friends of Frey who are all clearly hit very hard. I can't help but feel the saddest for Latina readers and authors who were not only hoodwinked by an alleged white person, but have had opportunities taken away from them and given to a white man! And what's doubly violent is that Frey themselves continuously talked about the very real lack of Latina inclusion in publishing, whilst allegedly being the very agent of that lack. And I use violent honestly, because this is ideological violence. Robbing historically and presently marginalized peoples of space is an act of erasure and violence. Diabolical to a point that Kate Crane looks normal even. It's now like 9 p.m. I'm writing the first part of the script. 12 hours have passed and Washington, D.C. is just rounding allegedly, but by about 10 p.m. I decide to retire. Doesn't mean I fell asleep, but I did go to bed because, unlike some people, I actually have a job. One thing, however, my time zone does afford me is what essentially amounts to a time skip. I woke up to my 5:25 a.m. alarm on Monday, April 22nd, 2024 AST, because I had to go to work. And you know I was rushing to Instagram in tandem with getting dressed and making coffee, though I didn't have proper breakfast this time. Turns out I actually need both my hands and eyes engaged to prepare food, but it also turns out that nothing really happened during my time skip, which wasn't very long anyway, seeing as I fell asleep at like 2 a.m. and woke up 3.5 hours later. There was this post that I guess Frey made within the wink I slept, probably considering the timestamp is missing. I've never come across the poster before, and I did not block them either. Received as evidence. Shout out to this observation. At 7ish a.m., I went to work.
I have to go to work.
Oh, I also saw this while being kept awake by the horrors. I don't know. I have both of these people blocked. I didn't realize there may have been a genuine reason too that I wasn't aware of. On my way to work, I actually ended up kind of snapping and sharing an extremely incensed and admittedly belligerent IG story, along with some screenshots regarding this other author's racism and ableism. No names were disclosed, and a bunch of other angry yapping. I called out another white author, not Frey, and also not naming them, for racist queerphobia from them as a white queer as well. I won't share those here as they were very much mask-off respectability politics thrown to the four winds, but I will share this response I got from my friend to it, which tells you all you need to know of my tone, I think. I had a shorter day and came home at about 2 p.m. I basically put out a smoke signal that folks can screenshot what they want to, bar my quote-unquote review of that one Frey book, and I deleted most things related to this from my IG story in about 3 hours' time. I cited Swan Heritage Month as my primary reasoning. I'm also not too keen to have TERF Islanders slithering into my DMs with their Orientalist racism again either. So, I'm markedly less peppy writing this section, seeing as it is really fucking awful what this person allegedly did, if this is all indeed true. I would like to center the voice of Rafael Nicolas, a queer Mexican indie author who was friends with Freydís and whom this has hit incredibly hard. One tweet of his reads, "So my heart hurts, but I'm more saddened about the horrible bullying they've been up to behind the scenes, including hurting some of my friends, taking opportunities from Latina authors. I wish I hadn't waved away the red flags and been too forgiving. I'm very sorry." This harkens back to what I said earlier, and also what I brought up on my IG story. I can't even imagine where this will go. People will start to be wary of new Latina authors popping up on the scene, which is atrocious. If this is all really true, FM has left behind such horrid ruin. I'm literally nauseous. This was in response to a tweet, "Brown face and blackface, done with the purpose of deception, is one of the worst forms of racism. It's the result of the racist belief that BIPOC are inherently privileged, and that being a person of color is more advantageous than disadvantageous. This is a far-right bias." And it has literally started to happen, like this moronic ask Raphael received.
You knew, didn't you? You had to have known. How do we know you aren't doing the same thing now that they were doing the last 2 years?
To which Raphael replied, "Because of Freydís Moon, I'm now receiving DMs and ask like this. I did answer it in case anyone wants some proof of my Mexicanness, but TLDR, being Mexican has brought me way more pain than anything else. I hope that's proof enough." This is the worst thing, and I truly do wish on these people saying these things to Latina authors now every heart-wrenching tragedy that could ever befall one. What a truly disgusting thing to say. Quote-unquote proof of Mexicanness. Having to prove your racial or ethnic identity is horrible. It's one of the worst positions I've been in personally. Genuinely fuck this person. I leave in the description a list of Latina authors that I'm aware of and also that I'm comfortable supporting. Keep in mind that I'm not familiar with most of them as I don't read. Not only that, but this review here claims that Freydís is actually a cis woman. So allegedly a cis white woman is masquerading as a queer Latina person. This is speculation, but all I can say is that it's not making it look much better. Though, to be fair, Taylor B. Barton is a white trash ass name. Peace and love to the white trash of the world. I should not be comparing you to the Tsarlishvili. Now, the court is prepared to proceed to sentencing. Regardless of what Frey comes out saying eventually, they have caused so much ruin. As I said, this repeated behavior has been beyond evil, and I fear that they may feel no remorse. And the fact that this whole thing was blown out of the water because they shared a recycled snippet of writing that was damn near word for word what they wrote under a previous alias. I mean, the American people are not intellectual, to put it mildly. What can I say? This is far from the end. God's forbid I have to do another two-parter like Kate Corain, but I fear I'll have to, so help me God. The defendant is guilty as charged in the incidents, allegedly though, for the evidence is overwhelming. This was far from anarchy on page. I've decided to make a list for myself of the things I'm going to say in these credit sequences because I always forget something. So, like this video, subscribe, comment, share, follow, support the authors listed in the description. April is Swana Heritage Month, so happy Swana Heritage Month to my beloved Swana family. I love you all so, so much. And happy Swana Heritage Month to me. Publication month is next month, May 7th, so if you'd like to support a queer mixed Swanan author, you can pre-order the first of my grimdark political mystery X dystopian gothic fantasy duology, and or get it as a NetGalley arc. All royalties earned from my duology will be donated to Doctors Without Borders, the Kurdish Red Crescent in Ofo, Armenia. I now have a coffee where I have a tipping jar and also do sensitivity reading for Orientalism and adjacent subjects. If you learn from me, pay me. You may step down.